Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
I think your sound is not on.
There.
I'm sorry, I have the news on. Not that good to listen to, is it?
No. I wanted to say Mazel Tov on your new grandchild.
Thank you. So happy. She's so beautiful. We're so lucky.
Blame the shooting on anything other than guns.
She's healthy. She just is learning how to smile. She's learning how to smile, which is really cool. Now y'all are on mute.
How old is she now?
6 weeks.
Oh, gosh, that's great. That's great.
Yes. So are y'all having Shabbat together tonight?
Yeah.
Are you at Kathy's or Deborah's?
At my house. My condo.
Yeah.
We had Annette dropped off some salmon, and Lenny loves mashed potatoes, especially Annette's mashed potatoes. So we had that for dinner.
Well, we had salmon too, but with roasted potatoes.
Y'all are eating much healthier than, but I'm having comfort food. So comfort food and Percocet.
With the love.
So
Well, as long as you're eating, that's.
When are you going to speak?
I don't know, throughout. Hopefully Steve didn't blow up our kitchen.
That may know it.
He is pretty funny. Ask him, do you have any spare MX cards? And what do they call it? Gift cards. Mister. Rabbit's men. Lie, 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 lie. La 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 ya da da da. La da ya la da da da. Ya da 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 da. Olam. Olam chesed yibaneh. La 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 la. Olam chesed yibaneh. Ya da 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 da. Olam chesed yibaneh. La 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 la. Olam chesed yibaneh. La 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 la. We must build this world from love. We must build this world from love. La 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 la. And if we build this world from love, la 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 la, then God will. Then God will build this world from love. La 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 la. Then God will build this world from love. La 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 la. from an old Siddur of the Reform movement. The universe whispers that all things are intertwined, yet at times we hear the loud cry of discord. To which voice shall we listen? Although we long for harmony, we cannot close our ears to the noise of war, the rasp of hate. How dare we speak of concord when the fact and symbol of our age is Auschwitz? The intelligent heart does not deny reality. We must not forget the grief of yesterday, nor ignore the pain of today. But yesterday is past, it cannot tell us what tomorrow will bring. If there's goodness at the heart of life, then its power, like the power of evil, is real. Which shall prevail? Moment by moment, we choose between them. If we choose rightly and often enough, the broken fragments of our world will be restored to wholeness. For this, we need strength and help. We turn and hope, therefore, to power beyond us. The eternal has many names, but is one, creating, sustaining, loving, and inspiring us with the hope that we can make ourselves as one as God is one. So with that in mind, garnering strength from one another and our voices, we will start Shabbat on this very heavy and complicated and scary week. We're going to turn to let's turn to page 11. Lechuneranana ladonai Nariya litzur yishenu nikad mafanav bitoda bizmirot nariya lo. Page 12 at the bottom. Arba'im shana akut bedor va'omar am to'el levavhem behem lo yadu drachai asher nishbati va'afi im yavun el menuchati. Shiru ladonai shir chadash, shiru ladonai kol haaretz, shiru ladonai baruchu shemo, basru miyom leyom yeshuato, safru vagoyim kivodo, ha'amim nifleotav ki gadol Adonai umilal meyod norahu al kol Elohim ay 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 ki kol Elohe ha'amim elilim ba'adonai shamayim asa hod v'hadar lifanav vos v'tiferet b'mikdasho havu l'Adonai mishpachot amim havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz havu l'Adonai kivod shemo Seu mincha uvo ulechatzrotav ishtachavu l'Adonai b'hadrat kodesh chilu mifana kol haaretz imru vagoyim Adonai malach aftikon tevel ba'al timot Yadinamim b'mesharim mismechu hashamayim tagel haaretz iram hayam umlo ya'alo sadai v'chol asher bo אז ירננו כל הצייר לפני אדוני קיווה לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק. ועמים באמונתו ידי די 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 לי 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 לי. Page 16. Horzaru ala tzadik, uyishrei lev simcha, simchu tzadikim, Adonai vehodu lezecher kodsho. Page 17. Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash Ki niflaot asa Hoshia lo Yemino Uzro HaKodsho Dia Adonai Yeshuato L'nei Goyim V'la Tzidkato Zechar Tzidkato Ve'emunato Lebeit Yisrael Ra'u Kol Afsei Haaretz Et Yeshuat Eloheinu Horiu Ladonai Kol Haaretz Pitzchu Ve'rananu Ve'zameru Zamru Ladonai V'chinor V'chol Zimra B'chatzorto Kol Shofar Hariu Livnei Melech Adonai Yiram Hayam Umlo Tevel Yeshua Neharot Yimchanu Haf
Yachad
Harim Yiranenu Lifnei Adonai Kiva Lishpot Haaretz Yishpot Tevel B'tzedek Ve'yamim Me'asharim Dai 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 Die, 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 die. The bottom of page 19, on the bottom left corner. Blessed is your coming, Shabbat, blessed is your coming. Bring with you rest and peace following a tumultuous week filled with so many demands. Bring the space in which with others and alone, we can shape an infinity of dreams. Blessed is your coming, Shabbat. Blessed is your creator. Blessed is your light. Psalm 29 on page 21. Please rise. Mizmor LeDavid, Havu Ladonai b'nei Elim, Havu Ladonai, Kavod Va'oz, Havu Ladonai Kivod Shemo Ishtachavu Ladonai B'Hadrat Kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim Adonai al maim rabim Kol Adonai ba'koach Kol Adonai behadar Kol Adonai shover arazim Vishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon Vayarkidem kimo egel Livanon Visiryon Kimo Kimo ben re'emim. Kol Adonai chotev lavodesh. Kol Adonai yachil midbar. Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yachol el hayalot. V'yechesov v'yarod. Uvhechalo kulo Omer kavod. Adonai lama buyasha. Yeshev Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oz li'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 oh. You may be seated. So you were introduced by Rabbi Lauren to Valerie Kaur this past high holidays. She wrote the book. She wrote the book.
She wrote the book.
She wrote the book about strangers, not meeting a stranger. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the title. It flew out of my head. Valerie Kaur, but she has a radical love movement of people where she really advises us to feel what we're feeling, because out of what we're feeling, perhaps will come both a sense of humanity, our own humanity, our very real human feelings, and will also bring us together with other people we may know that may have started off as strangers. It's called See No Stranger. So her approach is that you don't approach people as a stranger, as someone to fear or to be wary of, but rather to not see them as a stranger, but to see them as someone that you're curious about, that you want to hear their story. And she wrote this week as part of what she actually went to speak at a school or a university, a college, and she then on the way there, 25 minutes before, heard about the shooting in Texas of the school children. And she wrote, when reflecting on it, what does it feel like in your body? For me, it's like a primal scream that won't stop. When the death toll of Uvalde climbed to 19 children, I knew I had to wash the tears from my face and go downstairs and hug my babies and get them to bed. I wondered, is the heart big enough to hold this, all this grief, all this rage, all the joy in their faces? My ancestors said, she comes from the Sikh community. She's a liberal Sikh adherent. Oh, my love, yes, that is the heart we gave you. This is the heart we are given. Our breathlessness and pain are indications that we're awake to what is happening in our world, that we are terrified, angry, feel helpless and hopeless with the ever-increasing violence in our world. And she also wrote, you don't have to know people in order to grieve with them. You grieve with them in order to know them. See no stranger. We turn to page 22 and sing together Ana B'Koach, asking for the strength we can garner from the Almighty together as a community to hold us at this time. Ana B'Koach B'Kolat Yemincha Tatir Tzerura Tatir Tzerura Kabel Rinat Amcha Sagvenu Tareinu Nora Ana B'Koach Gedulat Yemincha Tatir Tzerura Tatir Tzerura Kabel Rinat Amcha Sagvenu Tareinu Nora. Page 23 will welcome the Shabbat bride. Lecha dodi rinkat kala b'nei Shabbat dekabela shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Hishmiyanu el hamiyuchad Adonai echad Shmo echad L'shem ultiferet v'letihila Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Likabela Likrat Shabbat Lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mekor haberacha Merosh mikedem Sucha sof ma'aseh B'machshava tchila Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Likabela Mikdash melech Ir melucha Kumitzei mitoch ha'afecha Rab lach shevet Ve'emek habecha Narhu yechamol La'yichem la'lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Nikabela Hitna ari me'afar kumi Liv shivigde Tifar techami Al yad ben yishai Beit halachmi
Korba el nafshi.
Ge'ela lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Kabela Hitoreri Kiva ore Kumi ori Uri Shir daberi Kivod Adonai Alayik nigla Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Nikabela Lo tevoshi Velo tikalmi Mati tishakhi Vatokami Bech yechesu Aneyami Benivneta iraltila Lecha dodi Likrat kala Nik Shabbat Kabela Behayulim Shosayi Berachaku Komevalayik Yasis Alayik Elohayik Kimsos Chatan Al-Kala Lecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Nikabela Yaminu smol tifrotzi Be'et Adonai taritzi Al yadish ben parti ben ismecha Vanagila Olecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Nikabela Olecha dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Nikabela Boi v'shalom Ateret bala Gam besimcha Uvzola Toch emunei יקלה ההולך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה הולך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה פני שבת נקבלה. We'll light some Shabbat candles now. You'll sing together with us, assuming we can light them. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat shalom. We'll continue on page 28. Tzadikata bar yifrach ke'erez balbanon yizkeh shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun b'seva deshenim v'rananim iyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo. Edotecha nemnu meod lebeitcha b'avat bodesh Adonai leorech yamim. Turn to page 39b and rise for the Barchu.
La
Lai lai da 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 da. Lai 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 lai
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach Amivorach. Ah,
Mm,
ah, I do. I do. I do. Oh, Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed.
May be seated. Excuse me. Mumavir yom umevi laila umavdil vein yom uvein laila nights va'od shemo El chai v'kayam tamidim lo chaleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai hamariv aravi Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta Torah mitzvot v'yim shvatim Ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amot Yisrael together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם ביתך ובשעריך. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Turn to page 44, please. Micha mocha Ba'elim Adonai Mika mocha Nedar Bakodesh Nora Tehilot Oh Sefelet Nora Tehilot Oh Sefelet Baruch atah Adonai Israel. The next page, 45. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. As we ask for God to shelter us in the shadow of God, of the wings of our Creator, we also ask for healing for those in our community who are in need of healing, healing of body, healing of spirit. And in our community this week, we especially call to mind Yitzchak Rafuel ben Harav Shruga Feivel, Arlene Wildstein, Ahuva Bat Yaakov, Verena Devora, Vicky Flink, David Cooper, Joel Reish, Eli Nikolaidu, Yaakov Ben Rivka Hofen, Eric Genzer, Ruvain, Gary Snyder, Jennifer Parker, Josh Lilly, Bracha Bat Hana, Lekain Poe, Esther Bat Ruvain, Ariel Lieb, Ben Ida Yosef, Sasha, Tanya, David, Peter, and Larissa Horbenko, Jeff Savell, Jarvin Levinson, Shmuel Ben Hyman Ve'ela, Shlomo Moshe Ben Viti Rachel, Lucille Epstein, Sharna Bat Esther, Katya Romo, Cheryl Heck, Tzipora Bat Golda, Kathy Eisenband, Stan Pollock, Orly Herskovici, Orly Bat Ludmila, and Ufros Aleinu Sukkot, Sukkot Shilomecha. May we feel that canopy of peace. May they feel a sense of healing and wholeness. We turn to page 46 for Vishamru. Please rise as we acknowledge the biblical sanctification of the day. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא דברך ירתה וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביום חון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, באמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח, ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא, Bimaru, Amen. We turn the page to our tefillah, our Amidah, and we'll be silent to page 52. Ose shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel vimru amen. Page 54. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chaychon v'yamechon uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'yimeru Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olal me'almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudashah Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tishbachata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'yimeru
Amen.
Titkabel l'soloton uvaton dechol Yisrael kadam avulon v'yishmai v'yimeru
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru
Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimeru Amen. You may be seated. Will you pass me that water that Steve so sweetly brought me? Thank you. Just thought I'd share a few words. Although some would say, and yet there can be, there has to be words, right? There has to be words to follow such horror, because if we remain silent, even though we're inclined to want to be silent and we're shocked into silence, then we're in trouble because we need to speak to one another to bring each other along and to hold each other up. We need to speak to the families. We need to convey what we can, even from afar, whose children were and whose loved ones, children and adults, were murdered, and one who died of heartache, if it can even be believed. Really, truly, a broken heart. And to speak to whomever we can to make change. So a lot of, you can imagine, I'm sure a lot of all of us received all sorts of messages, read all sorts of messages, listened perhaps to all sorts of pundits, but also people who were crying out. And there was a lot on our rabbi list. There was really a lot. I'm sure for Rabbi Lauren, as well as myself and all of our colleagues. I'll just share a few things that really struck me. One was from Rabbi Josh Lesser, who's here in town. He wrote, if you're friends with him on Facebook, you can find it, but he wrote, he was really struck by people who were belittling the idea of thoughts and prayers. Of course, thoughts and prayers alone won't do it. I look back and, to the Amidah and the God who gives life. Why won't God give life to these poor innocent children, innocent victims? So people will belittle the idea of thoughts and prayers as a partisan way of saying, that's all our legislators will do. That's all people in power will do. And it's just not enough. And they belittle it. And he really struck out against that. And he said, it's not either or. You can't be little thoughts and prayers, because for some of us, myself included, and obviously my colleague Josh Lesser included, it leads us to feel like we have the strength. Prayer leads many of us to feel like we have the strength to move forward, to do the work that needs to be done. He writes, "My prayer practice helps me endure my despair, focus my rage, transform my blame into discerning questions and choice points that lead to action." So let's stop with false binaries. Let's not pit prayer against action. And I think Valerie Kaur would say the same thing. Let's not pit prayer against action. Let's not blame others, but let ourselves off the hook. Let's turn our hand wringing, our finger pointing to tactics and strategies that might save our children's lives and the soul of our country. Speaking of children, so one of the things that I was led to in terms of my studies, thinking about children and them being in school, that place that was safe, where they were celebrating the end of the year. There's this line, "Ein ha'olam mitkayem ela bishvil hevel tinokot shel beit rabban." It comes from our Talmud, our teachings, ancient teachings, Shabbat 119b. Rav Yehuda said, that Rav said, this is preceding it, "What is the meaning of that which is written? Do not touch my anointed ones and do my prophets no harm. Do not touch my anointed ones. These are the school children who are as precious and as important as kings and priests. And do not harm my prophets. These are Torah scholars. These are the teachers." Reish Lakish said in the name of Rev Yehuda Nisia, and this is the line I quoted, "Ein ha'olam mitkayem ela bishvil hevel tinokot shel beit rabban." Reish Lakish said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Nisia, maybe you've heard this line, "The world only exists because of the breath of school children." The whole idea that, that we learn this, that the breath of school children learning, in ancient days, it was children who had Torah in their learning, but we can parlay that into our world as the breath of any children who are learning, and just how tragic, how obscene it is to think that children with learning on their minds and on their lips were struck down as they were. And the teaching from the Talmud goes on to say that the breath of adults has sin in it, chet, that same al-chet that we say in our at Yom Kippur. The breath of adults has sin, is tainted by sin. We don't really use that word a lot here in Judaism, but the idea that it's tainted, the breath of adults is tainted. And I would extend that to even the actions, the words. And it's not similar to the breath of children, our ancient teaching says, which is not tainted. The whole idea that children were interrupted at that time of learning is just really something that we were taught centuries and centuries ago, that the breath of school children is precious and that the world exists because of the breath of school children. The final thing I'll share with you is a prayer. Well, actually, I'll share with you that I stood on the bima, not this bima, but in Weber School on December 14th of 2012, because our esteemed rabbis had gone to Israel and asked me to sub. "You don't mind subbing? You don't mind?" And I was like, "No, not at all." And on December 14th, 2012, that morning, Sandy Hook, those children were murdered. The worst school shooting we've ever had. I mean, not that we should compare them, just the death of those 26 children. And I stood there and I was like, what am I going to say? I was speechless. I have a colleague who, after, I believe that this was after Buffalo, just a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, she wrote this prayer that's now going to be codified in a prayer book, in a Siddur. I don't know which one, but she's been asked to for the rights to codify it. Her name is Rabbi Heather Ellen Miller. She's a wonderful, wonderful person, and she titled it "Prayer After Acts of Violence." And Well, I'll get to that part and tell you. With love and healing, she writes, prayers and condolences, we string another bead on the necklace of senseless tragedies in our community, in our nation, in our world. Lives lost, wounded souls, a community forever impacted. We lift up names and hands to hold space and each other in these fraught times after, then she has parentheses, name of tragedy. And that to me is just killer. So, yeah, name of tragedy. Pain penetrating our hearts. We find flowers and select stones. We create makeshift memorials and share stories of growing grief, learning more about loved ones lost, and mourn this tragedy together, praying for peace to come soon. May the maker of peace cause peace to rain down on all of us. Say shalom b'mrumav. Amen. And it will be codified and ready for future horrors, which is really just the new normal, it feels. So I don't want to leave you with despair, but I think the fact that we can come here and we can share these words and share our hearts and reach out to one another and say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do to make sure people vote for legislation, vote for legislators who bring forth bills of sensible gun laws, which the vast majority, over 70% of our country wants, make it harder to access weapons of destruction, and also to be kind to one another, to go meet the other, to not see the stranger, to teach our children to approach the other with curiosity, not with fear. And God willing, we'll raise a generation who doesn't feel like they need to strike out, who can turn to one another when they're in despair and in a time of personal turmoil rather than turning to violence. Can you hear it, son? May it be God's will. All right, we are approaching the end of our service. We'll turn to page 56 and rise again for Aleinu. I'll call my trusty leader.
Aleinu
L'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, v'lo samanu kemishpachot hadama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim.
ומשתחווים
ומודים לפני
מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא והשב אותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים והשב אותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים ונאמר והיה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו echad. You may be seated. This week, as we say Kaddish, we're remembering in our community David Lautner, Jake Roche, Leonard Katz, Rebecca Schreiberg, Yoyachin Elon, Kalman Salpeter, Hilda Zalko,
Michael Lewis Cohen, Seymour Eckstein, Paul Ambry. If there are additional names, and Larry Kaminsky. And so we say, Orner's Kaddish, if you'd like to rise, and if you'll lead us, sir. I just have a dry spot.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
ביעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכם וביומכם ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה באמירון ויעלמה ואמרו
אמן.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
Amen. We'll remain, please join us and stand as we turn to page 55 for the Kiddush Shel Shabbat, and then we will go right into the counting of the Omer. Thank you. Maybe this will help.
maybe.
Page 55 together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'b'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'ma'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki banu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta im kohamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
Definitely doesn't help. All right, we are going to say the blessing for the counting of the Omer on 63. And then, since last night was 41, the 41st day of the counting of the Omer, we'll proceed with the next day on page 69. So we're starting on 63 together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al svirat haomer hayom shnayim v'arba'im yom shehem shisha shavuot la'omer. Today is the 42nd day, 6 weeks of the counting of the Omer. Amen. Please be seated. Do we even have announcements? Okay, we have announcements. We have announcements, and they are that
Jason hand wrote.
that Jason handwrote. That tomorrow morning, 9:15, our Shabbat services.
Correct.
We'll be back to lead you. We'll do our best to be back to lead you. And then on Friday the 3rd, next week at 5:30, there's a wind down, like WINE''D, wind. We're having some wine and cheese and greeting and schmoozing. At 6:30, there'll be a youth and family service, and at 7:15, a kid-friendly dinner. Whatever that means. Our kids like ate normal food. Yeah, whatever, probably. Okay, Saturday, the next morning, Saturday the 4th, there'll be Shabbat and Kiddush, and a Shavuot discussion on the book of Ruth at 8 p.m. online.
There's a discussion. And then
at 8 p.m. online, there's Shavuot programming. So check your Yihadashot, and you will have lots of information, I'm sure, about how to click in. But then on Sunday the 5th at 9 a.m., there'll be a hike at Kennesaw Mountain where there'll be hiking and festivities and all sorts of fun times had by all, God willing. And then we'll read the Torah on the top of Mount. It is Shavuot, yeah. So we'll do the Torah reading on the Mount, Kennesaw Mount, that is. But there was a time that my kids thought Temple Sinai was Mount Sinai. So they thought, wasn't that the Sinai in the, yeah, it was a long time ago. They were very young. Okay. So that being said, we have to conclude with.
Whatever you want. You want to make a blessing?
I do. I want to bless us. I want us all to bless one another.
Okay.
So how about we stand up, we hold hands, we do whatever we need to do to bless one another. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
Ratzon.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
Ratzon.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May we all be sustained by one another, and may God's countenance, God's face be lifted up toward us and reflect the love, the safety, the peace that we all long for. Amen. Adon Olam Asher Malach. Is that tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do something else. What do you want to do? Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat. In some Reform synagogues, we sing Adon Olam at night. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Thank you for singing along and playing along. Take them out.